Hello, welcome. Thanks for joining us today. Today we're really excited. We got Ronnie Campbell on with us. She's actually a stage 4 cancer survivor. She was diagnosed in 2018 or 19. We'll let her tell us all about it here in a second. But she's very inspirational, and she actually wrote a book. And we'll let her talk about her book too. Hopefully she's got a copy there to show. There it is. So she wrote a book, and it's very inspirational, and I'm really excited to get some inspiration here. And when she can talk about all the stuff that she did and all the extra stuff that she put into it to help her overcome this horrible disease, cancer. And hopefully we can all find some inspiration to keep going, because she did, and she's alive and well today, and doing great, as good as you could be for surviving this horrible disease. And then also she's very, and we had a little bit of a conversation the other day about the bureaucrats and big pharma, and how, and getting this metabolic therapy into more of the frontline standard of care. So maybe we can talk about some of the roadblocks and what we think we need to overcome some of these roadblocks to get these alternative treatments available to everybody, because they're extremely expensive. Everybody that's going through this understands that. And maybe we need to talk about like GoFundMe. I know I've been always talking about that. I have a GoFundMe. Thanks for all the support you guys have given me. I wouldn't be able to do these treatments without it. But if you're going through this, the importance of just, people want to help. So there's nothing wrong with asking for help. If you've been one to always step up and help other people, I don't think there's anything wrong with you guys asking for help when you need it too. That's the way that the world works. What goes around comes around. So anyways, Ronnie, why don't you start at the very beginning of your cancer journey and let us know what happened and how you got here, and just start at the beginning.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for having me, Jason. So my cancer story started actually in 2017. I have an identical twin, and she was diagnosed with breast cancer. So because Bonnie had breast cancer, they were sort of keeping an eye on me. And I went through all the tests in 2017, and everything was negative. I didn't have any cancer. And then in 2018, I was tested again. And after a routine colonoscopy, they did find that I had a cancerous tumor in my colon. And so they decided to do surgery. And when they did surgery, the surgeon found a surprise. There was a tumor on my omentum. And when they did some more testing after the surgery, it was also on my lymph nodes. So when I was in recovery, that's when he said he had found they had removed the cancer tumor in my colon. It had spread to my omentum, which they didn't see in the CAT scan prior to surgery, and that they had found it also my lymph nodes. So I would now need chemotherapy. So I would have to go and see an oncologist and go to the cancer clinic. So even after that, I was still unsure what stage I was. So when we did meet the oncologist a few weeks later, he said he was pretty sure the surgeon had done an excellent job. They had found that satellite tumor, which was a surprise. It was in my lymph nodes and it was in my colon. And he said, I think we need to do one more CAT scan just to make sure it hadn't spread anywhere else, because the omentum is the netting that covers your stomach and all of your organs. So he just wanted to make sure it hadn't spread. So I did another CAT scan, and now it had spread to my liver and my lungs. So when I went back to the oncologist and they told me the results of the CAT scan, I was considered palliative. I had 6 months, maybe 2 years if I took chemotherapy. And that was just to give me a better quality of life. And so, being a triathlete and I thought I was doing everything right, with healthy eating and all that, we were actually very surprised. And so when we left there, I wasn't sure if I wanted to do the chemotherapy. So I reached out and asked the nurse, I said, is there any naturopaths or alternative medicines? And they can't recommend anybody, but what she did share was there was a doctor that some of the other cancer patients were seeing, and here's his website, you can check it out. So I did that, and that's how I met my naturopath, and he was an oncologist naturopath. So when I went to see him and I explained what I had, and I said, I don't want to die. I was 57 years old. I want to see my son get married and have grandkids. And I didn't want to die. And I couldn't believe that I had such a short life left with this diagnosis. So he thought that he said, you've got aggressive stage 4. So I will put a plan together, but I think you need to take conventional and naturopathic treatments, which is what I did. And so he put me on a really aggressive, you know, hypothermia. I did that. I did mistletoe. I did vitamin C IVs and supplements. So when I did those coinciding with my chemo, along with my diet was Mediterranean, and also I fasted for the 3 days every other week while I was on chemo. So I did that, and then in 2019, in November of 2019, when I went to the oncologist and I had a CAT scan, they said I didn't need to take chemo anymore. But I still did the same treatments, my hypothermia, my IVs, and everything still at the natural path. The only thing I didn't do was chemo for 2019, 2020, 2021. And in December 2020, I was cancer free. But I still did those treatments. I dropped the hypothermia in 2022, and then in 2023 I just did IVs, the vitamin C IVs and supplements. And then at the end of 2023 I said, I need to do this on my own. So 2024 I just did supplements, um, uh, ketogenic diet and more carnivore, and lots of exercise. I, probably do 2 hours of exercise a day, but I've always trained. I was training for marathons. I was a triathlete. So I've always had that. I've always done that. So for me, that was the norm. But, I'm still doing very well. I go for CAT scans every 6 months and blood work, and everything is still normal. And my CAT scans are still, normal. And one of the things that my oncologist says, I don't know how you did it, but you did, and just keep doing what you're doing. So that's why for me, my diet, my exercise, my daily regimen is to me key to keeping me to where I am today. Because I do know that if I, you know, drop anything or, change what I'm doing, it may come back. And I worry about that every day, that it may come back.
Absolutely, because once you're stage 4, so you're NED now, no evidence of disease.
Yep.
And so once you're stage 4, but that still means that you still have cancer once you're NED. Once you're stage 4 and you're NED, so just for people listening that don't understand that, because there's circulating cancer cells in your body once you're stage 4, because it's metastasized and spread through basically your whole system, it's in your blood, it's in your stem cells, it's everywhere. You still have circulating cancer cells. And so you're NED because they haven't formed a mass anywhere and grabbed onto anything, but there's still those cancer cells. And so when people get NED, the best advice is to go get a liquid biopsy test done, because that will actually go in and find it through your stem cells and your circulating blood cells, the exact number of circulating cancer cells you have, and you can track that. And if it stays under 5 parts per, I don't know what the measurement is, I could be wrong, so please don't correct me on this or correct me in the comments below, but I think it's parts per million. So every blood work, if there's more than 5 parts per million of circulating cancer cells, then you're at risk of reoccurrence. If you're less than 5, then you're not. And so that's a great way where every year you can keep an eye on your circulating cancer cells so you can make sure that you don't have a reoccurrence. And if you see that number starting to creep up again or getting above that 5, you can really buckle down and maybe go do more high dose vitamin C or different things. So I also want to summarize what your protocol looked like. Let's just talk about that for a second, because when you had it, so what you said was you saw a natural path. So basically the way I see it is you did a ketogenic diet, you did mistletoe injections, you did high dose vitamin C. How many times a week? 3 times?
So my high dose vitamin C had mistletoe with it. And so
Okay.
it was Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on my off chemo week, and Monday and Friday on my chemo week. And then chemo was Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So on Wednesday, I would fast Wednesday, Thursday, and I would start to eat Friday after my chemo bottle came off. And then on Wednesday and Friday, so I would go to the chemo, go to the cancer clinic, do my chemo, and then leave from chemo to my natural path and do hyperthermia. And that is, so hyperthermia I did on Wednesday and Friday. And what that is you basically lay, it's like a waterbed, and there's electrodes. And then there was a probe that was on my stomach. And what it does is it heats your insides to 45 degrees Celsius. Now you don't feel it, but it that's what it does, and it virtually cooks your cancer cells. And so that's why it's important to fast and on those days. So that's why I would do that. And and then the following, then I would continue doing the vitamin C's. I did supplements, what the supplements that he had me do to keep my immune system up so that I wasn't sick. So, and I continued to do that even after I didn't need the chemo anymore. I still did it for 2 more years. And I just wanted to, and even after I was cancer free, I still did it for, 2021, because I just wanted to make sure everything was gone. So I stuck with my regimen.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And then you stuck with your regimen until 2023, you said, and now
Yes.
you're still maintaining using carnivore diet and exercise. I think exercise is a big part of your regimen too. So what was
Yeah.
your exercise regimen like while you were fighting the cancer and going through treatments? Because exercise takes up excess glucose and glutamine in your system. So I think that's a very important part of what you were doing. So what was your exercise regimen like?
So on my chemo, I would usually, well, when I was doing chemo, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, I usually just walked. Thursday and Friday, if I didn't feel bad, I would, I always did probably 10K a day. So I'd walk in the morning and I'd walk again in the afternoon. Or I'd go over to the Gretzky Center and I'd do stairs if I felt good. And then once the bottle came off, I usually had a pretty shitty weekend. I would still walk, but I wasn't working out. But then usually back on Monday, I would start. And once I was okay by the doctor to start getting back into exercise again, I would start running. I cycled. And I would do something every single day. I went to Orange Theory 3 times a week. I rode my bike 40, 60K. Actually, while I was doing it in 2021, I think I did the cancer ride in 2020. And because it was COVID, we did it virtual. And so I did the 100-kilometer bike ride for cancer, but I was at home when I did it. And so I still did all that. But again, for me, that was the norm, right? I had always rode my bike. I always swam. I always ran. So for me, once I was okayed by the doctors and I felt better, so on my off weeks, I would continue working out like I normally did. And then Monday, I would start to slow down. Tuesday, I would go in and do my blood work, and that would open my port. So once my port was opened, um, I would just walk because it was harder to cycle or run with, your port open.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, a big part of the problem that people are going to have here is in looking at your protocol is you have a lot of things going on here. And do you mind talking about the cost of what everything cost you and how you dealt with that or how you manage that? Like, is that something that you're willing to share with us? Because that's a huge problem with people
It
is
is.
not only that's a huge problem. So do you mind kind of opening up about that a little bit?
Yep. Naturopathic treatments are very expensive. I mean, I spent well over 150,000 dollars. Um, and yeah, it's very expensive. And it's one of those things. At the time, I was more fortunate because it was later in life, right? So I used the money that would have been my retirement was covered the costs of my treatments, you know, and that's why for me, I think it's a shame that the OHIP doesn't look at naturopathic treatments or holistic treatments under the OHIP umbrella. And I actually wrote to the government when I was going through my chemo and also just about a month ago asking for them to put this to take a look at the OHIP and include the holistic treatments under there, especially if you have cancer or any terminal disease, because you have to look at what's best for the patients. Now, I did get a letter back saying that they weren't going to change OHIP the way it was right now. Sorry, it wasn't the what I was looking for. But I still think they need to look at that because there is so many people getting cancer and there's so many options out there. And the thing is that, chemo is good, but you may need, some of the options that I did, the naturopathic ones, maybe they would work for somebody else, or help them, get through this cancer just a little bit better. And I just think that it's important that they keep everything available for anybody going through cancer. And that's what is really sad about it. Um, I would do want to write again, just because there was patients when I was at my naturopath getting IVs that sold their cars to get IVs. You know, it shouldn't be that way. People shouldn't have to not have the money. It shouldn't be, using up your retirement fund to cover, things for cancer. We didn't ask for cancer, and like I said, I thought I was doing everything right, but apparently I wasn't. um, so that's where I think that they really need to revisit it and make it more available. uh, make the healthcare should be all options for anybody going through any terminal disease.
Yeah, and that's say what you want about Donald Trump. I don't want to get into politics, but one good thing I do see coming down the pipeline is RFK. He's really going to pushing hard. Part of his agenda is to go after big pharma and the big food industry, and try to. He wants more government. He wants more testing done on vaccines. He's not an anti-vaxxer. I've actually listened to him talk. When you listen to the guy talk, he's got all his vaccines, even just not some of the newer ones that haven't been tested. And he wants more thorough testing on big pharma and these vaccines and some of these mainstream drugs. And he wants more availability to natural treatments. So he even said while he was talking on Fox the other day, he specifically stated hyperbaric oxygen for cancer patients. He specifically said it. He wants more testing done. He wants more studies conducted so that this is more readily available and covered by insurance for people that are going through these horrible illnesses. He'd rather see people using hyperbaric oxygen, building other protocols, than using big pharma chemo necessarily, or like maybe using them all together to make it work better. He wants it more readily available, which is pretty special. So I mean, that's one good thing then, and that's the one reason I wanted Trump to win was because of RFK and his beliefs and that side of things. I'm not saying that the rest of the politics about Donald Trump and the way that he treats people in Canada and tariffs is right or wrong. I don't really care about all that. I'm fighting cancer right now, and I think that the number one priority for me is to get these additional treatments, and that's one thing that is being going through our society right now. I know we're Canada and they're America, but if the Americans move on this sort of treatments, I mean, Canada typically will follow suit eventually, and I think that's a good thing. Plus, it'll get more studies conducted to see the efficacy of these treatments, so we know which ones work better actually, and maybe some of these treatments that you were on maybe worked, maybe one of them didn't, and you spent maybe $20,000-$30,000 and it wasn't working. So having more studies and more human data on it to say, oh, with this type of cancer, this high dose vitamin C will work extremely well, and this, because we don't actually know what got you cancer free. We know it was chemo, and we know it was probably the supporting metabolic therapy you did, but to pinpoint exactly what did it, we can't prove it. But wouldn't it be great if we had the human data and more studies conducted on these things to say specifically for you, Ronnie, that if you do high dose vitamin C with this cancer, your survival rate goes up by 60%. Wouldn't that be great to know? Because
Yeah.
then we can actually, yeah, it would be amazing. And then maybe get coverage through insurance. That'd be fabulous. So I
And
think that's a good thing that's coming.
yeah, and that's one of the things, like you say, the studies, and then once they get that, the insurance and OHIP needs to look at the way it's handled, because then, with your insurance coverage, they need to make sure that holistic treatment is covered more. I know with my husband's plan, they covered $45. Well, every time I left Dr. Reed's, it was always well over 500, so um, that's where you have to look at that, maybe give one lump sum and let them use it all up, because one lump sum could get 2 or 3 full treatments rather than, $50 on 10. You know what I mean? And people may be able to afford it. And then maybe if they supplement it with OHIP, because with OHIP, even if they covered half the cost, would be better than nothing at all. Because why should people have to sell their house or get a GoFundMe or whatever just to cover, they're sick, I don't know. That part really bothers me, that people have to do it. And I know with naturopaths, I know that with them, they don't have the topping that they do as a doctor, right? So right now, your doctors have a cap. Holistic doctors don't. So that is also one of the things that I don't know if they want to be covered under OHIP, but I know when I wrote the letter when I was going through chemo, that was one of the things that I found out, is that they're not as keen about being under the OHIP umbrella, for the simple reason then they're capped like other doctors.
Yeah, that's crazy. If you're sitting there listening to this and you're going, well, I can't afford this stuff anyways. And if you're willing to put in the work, I'll tell you my situation. If you want to know about GoFundMe, go watch my podcast with my sister. She did it for me. And we really got into details on my GoFundMe and how she did it and the benefits that came to her and myself. Reach out to my email, go to my YouTube page, email me. Yeah, heck, I'll have you on the podcast. We can talk. We can help you set up GoFundMe. We'll try to get you some activity here. I'll do whatever I can to help you get some cash flow coming in to help you cover some of these treatments. If you need help, just reach out, send me an email. My email's there. I offer that out to anybody that needs help. At least we can put your story out there and get in front of some people. People do want to help people. Like
They
that,
do.
there's a lot of good people in this society. And yeah, and when you're going through this, you're the most vulnerable and weakest you've ever been in your life, and you're not working, and you just need the help. Sometimes you just need the help, and it's very hard to humble your, I don't know what the right word is, but your own pride and ego has to go aside, and you just have to say, I need help. And it's hard to do.
Yep,
It's
and you
hard to
know
do.
what? Most people, when they find out you have somebody they know has cancer, they wanna help. And
Hmm.
so if there is a GoFundMe, they're willing to, participate, for the simple reason they wanna do something to help you. So, yeah, I do think
Absolutely.
that's a good option. Yes.
Yeah, so my GoFundMe, like I have spent everything that's come in on treatments, and I've had to still sell off assets to cover the cost of treatments, hyperbaric oxygen and Dawn and repurposed drugs. Like even just buying fembendazole to take my 50 milligrams per kilogram dose of daily fembendazole. It's probably close to $1,000 a month just on fembendazole. Like it's crazy. I've never added it up, but I'm taking 444 milligram tablets, 4,000 milligrams a day. Like I don't know what the cost of that is because I've never added it up, but I'm going through bottles of it.
Yeah.
Like it's a hundreds of dollars a bottle, probably. I don't know, $150 a bottle, I think, at 444 dosage. Like it's just it adds up, all of this stuff, and it's tough for everybody.
Yeah.
What do you think's where the big problem is we don't have human data on metabolic therapy.
No.
We don't have human
Mm.
trials.
No. And that is the issue, even well, I mean, I'm an odd one. Most people, that had cancer, like I have, aren't here today, um, and that's where it would have been nice to document, because I'm not sure because I did so much. I, like you say, can't pinpoint exactly what it was, but it would be great to have data, and like you say, so that people can, because when you get cancer, and I was talking to somebody yesterday that's going through cancer. You almost want a manual. Do you know what I mean? You just want, when you get diagnosed, you just want something that says, here's what I need to do to fix this. And everybody going through cancer, it's trial and error. Like everybody's, reaching out and trying to figure out what's going to work for them so that they can benefit and get rid of the disease and get back to, being healthy and normal again. And that's the real sad thing about cancer. There is nothing that there's no quick fix for anybody because everybody's cancer is different.
And it changes. Just because it's
Yeah.
one way this week doesn't mean it's that way next week. So your cancer
Yes.
actually changes on you. Once you think you kind of got things kind of sorted out where you're happy, next thing you know, it's not the case anymore. Something
Yeah.
different's happening in your body.
Yeah.
The cancer is just, it's ever adapting and evolving inside of you. And you're always chasing it.
Yep. Yeah. That is so true. Yes.
It's such a struggle. Such a struggle. So where do you think, like the bureaucrats and the pharmaceutical companies, the bureaucrats seem to be in bed with each other and like playing together with each other. But then you said that you had went to an event and you realized like they're actually getting each other's way as well. I don't know if you want to talk about that event that you went to and what happened there and what
Yeah.
was going on there.
I was at a conference in the fall, and one of the things, the big pharma was there, and they were talking about everything that they do, and they all have committees where they listen to the patient, which I think is amazing. But one of the speakers was from our government, and I find that when I was there, one of the things that opened my eyes was it wasn't so much the big pharma, it's more the government trying to okay things and to approve. And that's what a lot of the holdup is. It seems to be in the government. It's stuck somewhere and it hasn't been approved, or they're waiting for something. And that's where I would say the difficulty and is. Because even with the letter that I wrote, in regards to putting holistic treatments for terminal patients under the OHIP umbrella, I wrote it in 2020, and then I wrote it again this year. And it takes a month for them to come back. And I mean, it was just a generic letter saying no. There was no thought in it at all. And actually, and both times I replied and said how disappointed I was because more and more people are getting diagnosed with cancer. You need to look at, what the needs really are. But if you look at our healthcare system right now, it sucks, right? So that's where, I don't think that they're looking at the right things. Our government needs to look at where the priorities really are.
They absolutely do. So I'm out of lines of treatment from OHIP coverage, so I'm paying out of pocket my own private immunotherapy right now. It's $4,000 a dose, and like, let's pray to God it works. Otherwise, I got nothing left to treat myself with, and yeah, we know that's not going to end very well. So, but I'm out of treatments, and now the immunotherapy I'm on, the reason I don't get coverage for it is it's actually a first line treatment now for my type of cancer, but because it's a first line treatment. Well, I've already been through my first line treatment. So, and it's used with a different chemo, the first line chemo that I originally had. But because that chemo is no longer worked for me, I'm not allowed to go back to that chemo, and I can't pair it with this immunotherapy. So therefore, OHIP won't cover it. And so I don't get coverage for it. So I got to pay for it out of pocket, and it's absolutely insane. It's the only chance I got to live, and they won't cover it. And they know that it does work with my type of cancer. So I don't, it's just, but what do you do? And so if it wasn't for my GoFundMe and this YouTube community, and like all the money that comes in is going back into like holistic treatment or naturopathic type treatments, and now immunotherapy basically soaking up the whole budget and then some. But what do? You got to sell off personal assets and just keep trying, right?
Yeah, but that is wrong. And that's what I struggle with. I just think that is so wrong because our government needs to look at that. And, people are younger and younger getting cancer. And your odds of getting cancer, I believe now is 1 out of 2. So the chances of you getting cancer is higher and higher. So what they've got isn't working. Like if the majority, and you're not the only person that's had to pay for some of your treatment, there's a lot of cancer patients that do. So they really need to look at it because that's just wrong. And I don't know whether I don't know what else to do. We can continue writing, or do we, you know, work on putting something together, a signed letter from, so many people, saying that you really need to visit it and you need to look at, what worked before isn't working now. And it might be because, when they first did the OHIP, cancer patients weren't as high, or terminal illness wasn't as high as it is now. So they need to look at that and say, you know what, maybe we need to juggle, maybe we need to take this off and add this on. I seriously believe that, our healthcare, like that, it should be one of the priorities for the premiers right now, but they need to look at where the needs are for the healthcare. And it's something that needs to be looked at sooner than later, because like I said, you're not the only cancer patient that I know of that are having to supplement to cover their own chemo costs. And that's just not fair.
What would need to happen before there will be any coverage is we need randomized controlled studies in humans. And unfortunately, there just isn't any. So metabolic therapy, we can show works in mice. We can show Dawn and all this stuff, and Press Pulse and Professor Seafried. We can show metabolic therapy slows the growth rate of cancer. I want to make that very clear to everybody listening. Slows the growth rate. It's not a cure. He says that this is cancer management. So I think people need to get that very straight. Metabolic therapy alone is not a cure. It's very rare that somebody can use metabolic therapy and get NED. Now, there's a few people that claim that they've done it. Den Stacy would be one. Unfortunately, he just had a reoccurrence. So let's pray for him. But yeah, like it's not a cure. It's just help manage your cancer and help you live a bit longer. That's what it slows the growth rate. But what we need is the randomized controlled studies showing that adding metabolic therapy and these natural different remedies from, you got red light therapy, you got hydrogen gas, you got high dose vitamin C, you got the hypothermia, you got all these options available to you. We need a randomized control studies showing that they increase survival rates. We need randomized control studies showing that they maybe reduce your symptoms of standard of care, chemo and radiation. Something that's important to talk about is chemo resistance. Cancer likes to become chemo resistance. You were fortunate enough to beat your cancer before your cancer outsmarted your chemo, essentially. So you're very fortunate for that. How can you overcome chemo-resistant tumors? How can you overcome the chemo resistance? Like, maybe there's some natural treatments we can do to do that. Like, I don't know, but I mean, we need randomized controlled studies in humans, but where do you get the funding for it? Where does the funding come from?
But there's got to be something out there. And you know what? I don't know why they're not doing it now. I mean, because, well, yeah.
Money. I think we all know why. I think it's because my immunotherapy. So my immunotherapy is actually $6,000 a dose, but because I'm paying out of pocket, we just said, well, we're self-funding. Can you do better? They're like, oh, you're self-funding. We'll do it for 4. That's the way it went with the drug company. We actually negotiated the price. So I thought originally it was $6,000 a dose, and now we know it's 4. But they go to OHIP, they chose OHIP 6. So your taxpayers are paying $6,000 a dose. But meanwhile, they can sell it to you individually just to make the extra sale for 4. Like, that's the problem in all of this. And so Big Pharma is the one that funds these randomized control studies in humans. They're the ones that always fund it because they have a new drug they want to get approved. So they'll spend hundreds of millions of dollars to get it through the process and get it approved, right? And get it on the street. And just because something works in a lab and works in mice doesn't mean it transfers into humans either. So a lot of this metabolic therapy stuff, and we don't know which pieces and these natural remedies, but a lot of them may not actually even work. We don't have the human data to say whether or not they work. And some of them might work better than we expect. We don't know. But we
Mhm.
need the data. But why would Big Pharma pay for it when it would take away from their immunotherapy sales? Maybe, right?
Yeah, but that's where I'm just not sure, because now that I know that each of the big pharma, they have a committee, and it's just the voice of the patient, which I think is key, right? The voice, and if you look at it, your immunotherapy, what I don't understand, and when I was going through cancer, and I did go to my city MPs, and my question to them was, why isn't it covered? Why is my holistic treatments not covered under OHIP? Because had I have not done so well, I would have still needed chemo. So what he sent me, my MP sent me away, and he said, I want you to find out what your costs for chemo would be, for each treatment, and then what you're paying in OHIP, or not in OHIP, in my holistic. So I got those numbers for him. I sent them to him, because for me, the government, you know, they would have paid for me to be on chemo. So I'm not on chemo, but I'm still doing the treatments at my holistic. So can't you cover them? Um, and so I did get all the dollars. I got everything for him. I put a spreadsheet together, and I sent it to him, and he never answered one of my calls or emails after that.
Bureaucrats, eh?
Yep. Yep. Because I put it all together, and that's where I said to him, because even with you, if you were normally going to the hospital and your chemo worked, you would still be taking chemotherapy. So why are you having to pay? And if you are paying out of pocket, why isn't OHIP covering some of it? And that's what I don't understand, because some people take chemo forever. So so it's an option. So why is this different? And
It
that's what
shouldn't
I
be.
really struggle with. And
So what was more money, the chemo or the naturopathic medicines?
the
Like, what was the
chemo, the
difference?
chemo was more money.
How much more? Do you remember?
No, I have all the research. I think it was $3,500 a treatment,
Whew.
or something like that. And at
Every
that
2
time,
weeks. Every 2 weeks.
every 2 weeks, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And I
like
bet you that's gone up.
my hypothermia at that time was $350 an hour, or $375 an hour. And I was doing 1 hour on the Wednesday and 1 hour on the Friday. And then my vitamin C IV bags, uh, with mistletoe, I think it was $280. So you're looking at $500-600 a treatment, right? As compared to what it would have cost me for my chemo. So it was cheaper for me to do the holistic treatments. But so you would think that they would cover that.
You'd think so.
So,
Well,
but
and like you paid your taxes, and if there was enough evidence that this stuff worked, you think, like, you pay your taxes, you're supposed to have healthcare in Canada. You would think that they would cover it, but no, they don't. And that's maybe an advantage in the States. I don't know if they have individual health plans that cover this stuff. I don't think they do. But like, even if we could buy individual health plans that would have insurance for this stuff that we could add into our group insurance or something that would provide coverage, maybe that's an answer. Yeah, it'd be an extra cost while you're working and healthy, but at least you'd have the ability to use this when you're sick, right? So
yeah.
maybe that's an answer, a separate type of insurance program that would
Well,
cover
there
natural
is
medicines.
there is a you can get and somebody I know that I work with, you can get the critical insurance.
Critical illness insurance, yeah.
Critical illness, and what that happens, you buy that, and then if you do get sick, you can take it out as a lump sum,
Yeah.
and then that would be, and I didn't know about that till after I had cancer, but it was something that, maybe one of those things that if you do have an option to get critical care insurance, then I would do that, because then you can cash it in and then it would cover any expenses. I wish I would have known that before I got cancer. But at the time, I mean, I didn't know I would do holistic. Um, and at the time, you do, when you're going through cancer and you know it yourself, you will pay whatever. You will do whatever because you want to live, right?
Yeah, like when you go from life is okay, everything's fine, to sudden news that you have stage 4 cancer and you only have months to live, like, yeah, your world's turned upside down.
It
And
is.
then everybody around you changes, like, just your relationships with people change. Like, it's crazy. The way that people treat you changes.
Yes,
One
for
thing
sure.
you said to me the other day is, people around you, like, just treat me normally. Don't treat me like I'm already dead.
Yeah.
Like, what did
And-
you find about dealing with people
Oh,
around you when you were dying?
well, because I was stage 4 and it was everywhere, they would, when you saw people out in the public, they would look at you and say, "Well, you don't look that bad. Hey, I just want to be normal." You know, like whether, yeah, it's just you don't look like you're sick. Well, okay, thank you. And that's one. And also, when you are going through chemo or cancer, and it goes on, at the beginning, you have a lot of people. You have a lot of people. You have a lot of support. But as it goes on, it dwindles down. And you don't have as many people check up on you, and you know, and everything just sort of, because everybody gets busy, right? Um, but it's still nice when you are going through cancer to get that high. Just checking to see how you're doing, because you know what, you just want people to know you. Hey, I'm still here. I'm still here.
Yeah.
Still going through the stuff. And when you are going through cancer, and you're the same way, I used to have a calendar, and I was busy every single day. I was going to appointments. I would had something, my whole month was busy. And if I had a day where I didn't do anything, it was like, today is a good day. I don't have to go to a doctor's appointment. I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying home today. It's a good day, you know. And most people don't realize that when you are going through cancer, that it's not just, one day a week going to the chemo center, and the rest of the week you're sitting home doing nothing. It doesn't work that way. You have a lot of appointments, a lot of things that you're trying to do just to keep yourself healthy, right? And get this cancer out of your body. So,
Mhm. Yeah, and so I think one of the things that I'm on now, because I did the metabolic therapy, I did the Dawn, I did HBOT, I did keto diet, I've done all this stuff. Now I'm looking at these hydrogen therapy. I'm looking at red light therapy, grounding, PMF grounding. This stuff, some of it's been shown to shrink tumors. Some of it's been shown just to reduce chemo side effects and make the chemo and immunotherapies work better. If you somebody said to me one time, buy the casino, not the chips. So I was an investment advisor for a living before I got cancer. So buy the casino, not the chips, means that if you buy the house basically and let it, you can always get the treatments and yield the benefits of owning the house, essentially is what it means. And so if I can buy a hydrogen machine that's gonna proven in the literature to shrink cancer, and it is, and it's got thousands of publications, I can buy it one time for $2,500. Yeah, it's a $2,500 investment, but I can use that as part of my treatment protocol and get the same benefits maybe as doing high dose vitamin C. I own the machine, so if I pass away, my family can resell it and regain some of the money from buying the machine. I can have it at my own disposal, so I can use it on a regular basis. And so I really would think that if I am able to overcome this or keep going, and if I can keep living and overcome it, I'd really like to come up with a protocol where you own everything in the protocol, so that way, once you have a total cost, say it's $10,000 to buy a red light panel, buy the hydrogen machine, buy grounding blanket, I don't know what else there is, and then maybe a monthly set of supply, repurposed drugs and things, right? Because some people want vitamins, magnesium. You should get your blood work tested to see what you're low in. I think people are jumping too quickly to taking supplements that are not needed, and they're spending time and money on things that their body doesn't need. So for example, vitamin D is very important. If you're doing immunotherapy, you probably want to make sure you have your vitamin D because it helps support your immune system. Same with vitamin C. But if your levels aren't low, why are you supplementing it? And I mean, you're doing that every month. Well, we just named two things, right? Vitamin D and what was the other thing I said? Vitamin C. I don't know. You could be spending $100 a month on pills right there. That's $100 a month you could be saving, right? So I think it's important to get your blood work tested. I think I'd really like to come up with a protocol that you own the casino, not the chips, where people could, because then you could do a lot of these treatments yourself. Now, you could even do high dose vitamin C yourself. I've had people reach out to me that actually do it themselves. They buy everything on Amazon. It's like $30 a dose, and they self-administer it. And it's very easy, apparently. Yeah, it's very easy to do a high dose vitamin C IV yourself. It's very easy. You have to put the needle in yourself, but that's easy enough once you have a port or the other thing on the arm. That's easy enough to do.
That's one thing, because I did so many vitamin C's, and that's part of the reason why I quit in 2023. I ran out of veins. And now when I go for my blood work or go to get my CAT scan every 6 months, they really struggle with finding a vein. And I usually come home with bruises all over my arms because they're not as strong as they used to be. They're actually very weak, right, and small. So that is one thing. I know when I did the mistletoe, I did straight injections in my stomach, and so I would buy the mistletoe from my naturopathic doctor, and it would be probably about 4 months worth of vials, and then you just inject in your stomach. I mean, if you could do vitamin C that way, that would be easier than injecting it into your vein.
I don't know if you can do it subcutaneously. I think it still has to be IV, but people self administer IV vitamin C. But I mean, you'd have to set up your IV, right? So.
Yeah, and like I said, for me, I ended it because it was awful. Like they would spend 20 minutes trying to you go from one arm to the other, and they'd have heat on it, and
Have your veins healed at all? Have your veins healed at all? Have your veins healed at all?
They're not bad, but I'm still, when I go every 6 months, they still struggle to get it here. When I was at the end, I was getting them in my hands because none of the arms were working anymore, either side. So and when you get them in your hand, it is like it burns, like it's nasty. So yeah,
I bet.
I don't miss that at all. Because when I had the port, it was easy, but my naturopath wouldn't use the port unless it was open. So they would only use it on my Friday IV, when I was going through chemo, because the chemo bottle would be out, and they would just leave the port open, because I was having hydration on the weekend, and
Mm.
then the natural path would use it, and they would charge an additional charge to use your port. But that was way easier for me than spending 20 minutes trying to find a vein that didn't collapse. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's no fun getting poked multiple times while they try to hit a vein. That's no fun.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I had a there was a that was probably the worst part of my, IVs, especially near the end, after, like, couple years. Yeah, because when I first started, I had great veins, but, not when I finished.
Well, I think we covered a lot today. We're coming up to an hour already, so I don't know if you have any final thoughts, or you want to hold up your book against it and talk about your book for a minute. Let's talk about your book before we let you
Okay.
go. So we,
This is my book, and it's basically my journal, because I journaled every day, and so it's basically a day to day of my journal. And then at the end, I listed some of my supplements. I also talked about the treatments that I did, the intravenous IVs, and my hyperthermia, just with definitions of what they were and how they worked, just for people. It's more of a reference book. A lot of people that read it usually go back to it, and just as did this happen? Or if something happened to them on their chemo treatment, they'd go back and say, did this happen to her? So that's what I find with most of the people that I talk to that have read my book. They use it more as a reference now.
that's awesome. That's awesome.
Mhm.
Where can people find your book?
It is on Amazon.
Mm.
And if they want to contact me, I do have a website, Ronnie's Campbell author.com. And they can contact me there too if they want, if they've got any questions, or they, just want to reach out and have me call them or whatever. They can do that.
Oh, awesome. That's amazing for you to offer. People always need help when they're going through this, and they need to speak to people that have been through it. Um, you were saying that before we started, actually, that people need to speak to people that have been through this or are going through it, because most people don't understand what people are going through. So for you to make that offer is quite awesome of you.
For me, it's paying it forward, and I know when I was going through it, I wanted to talk to somebody. My big thing was trying to find somebody that had stage 4 cancer, and not just in one place, and as many as I did, right? Because we're few and far between. And I wanted to see if I could live. I wanted to see if I could make it past those 2 years, right? So yeah, that's why, if people want to reach out, and I'm available. Yeah.
If you text me your website, I'll put it in the
Okay.
description here so you guys
Yep.
can check out her website. That's awesome. That's
Yep.
awesome. Okay. All right. Anything else? Any final thoughts or anything that we should throw in here? I can't
No,
think
and I
of
want to
anything.
thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, I want to thank you for coming. This has been fun. Thank you so much for joining us, and this hopefully will get out to lots of people, and you're definitely an inspiration. So thank you so much for sharing your story and in your book and in this podcast. So thank you. Can't thank you
Thank you.
enough.
Yep. Thank you
Uh,
very much.
all right. Bye
Okay.
guys. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.